Forgiveness is one of the hardest things that we'll ever do. We've all been wronged, mistreated, abused, and rejected by someone. And sometimes the wound from that mistreatment gets so deep that the idea of letting it go seems impossible. How we handle that pain and how we respond to those who hurt us says a great deal about who we are. So the real challenge of forgiveness is that oftentimes the people who hurt us don't deserve to be forgiven. I mean, it's one thing when somebody realizes what they've done and they come and they seek our forgiveness and they seek to make amends. It's another when they don't even really understand how bad they've hurt us. Or even worse, they know how bad they hurt us and they just don't care. How do you forgive someone like that? How do you forgive someone who's hurt you so deeply and shows absolutely no remorse for it? Forgiveness is not about the person who hurt you. Forgiveness is about Jesus. Think of what you have done. See, we have all rejected God. We all sinned. We all rebelled against Him and entered into open war against God. We were all His enemies, and while we were His enemies, God sent Jesus, His Son, to die on the cross for our place. Jesus took our sins, He took our mistakes, He took our pain and our failures upon Himself, and He died for us to offer us life and to offer us forgiveness. We didn't deserve what Jesus did for us. Jesus did it anyway. See, forgiveness isn't about what the person deserves. Forgiveness is an act of grace. If the person deserved forgiveness, it wouldn't be a gift. It would be what you owe them. If they deserved forgiveness, you would have no right to withhold it. The whole point of forgiveness being what it is that you're offering forgiveness to someone who doesn't deserve it. And it is a painful process. It's a difficult process. Imagine you're walking through your house with a glass pitcher and it slips out of your hands. And it hits the ground and it shatters and all the pieces of glass get into the carpet. And you go through and you pick up the big pieces and then you go through again and you get the smaller pieces and you go over it again and again and again, trying to make sure that you've got all the little pieces out of the carpet. And even when you've been over it a dozen times and you're sure that you've cleaned up the mess, sometimes you go walking through the house barefoot and you get a painful notification that you've missed something. Forgiveness is like that. It's not a one-time event. It's not something you do and is done. You have to go over it again and again. And even when you think it's done, even when you think you've offered the fullness of that forgiveness, sometimes there's little pieces that get left behind. Sometimes there's that thing that pops up and brings all the pain and the hurt and the frustration back. It doesn't mean that you failed to offer forgiveness. It just means the forgiveness isn't yet complete. Forgiveness is a process. It's a journey that's over once all the glass is thrown away in the trash where it belongs. And sometimes you choose that even when they are still hurting you. See, in the Bible, forgiveness is a past tense word. You have been forgiven. Not just for the sin that you committed before today, not just for the sin that you committed before you became a Christian. You have been forgiven of all sin, past, present, and future. And because we have been forgiven, we offer forgiveness. And forgiveness doesn't mean you have to forget what the person has done. Forgiveness doesn't mean you have to pretend they didn't hurt you. Forgiveness comes from choosing not to hold what they have done to you against them. And forgiveness is as much for you as it is for anyone else. It is when you offer forgiveness, you let go of the anger and the pain and the bitterness that builds up in your heart. And you choose not to respond to sin with more sin. So when you let go of that anger, you're free to respond in love. And when you forgive, you love. And when you love, you look like Jesus. Forgiveness is the process that God gives us to look more like His Son. It is where He molds our hearts and He shapes us into the image of Jesus so that we can respond the way that He does, so that we can be more like Him, so that our lives, even when wronged, will be an example of who He is. So when someone wrongs you, don't worry about what they deserve. Don't cry out for justice. Seek a way to offer forgiveness. Respond the way that Jesus did, who on the cross looked out at the people who put Him there and said, Father, forgive them. They don't know what they've done.